Great. Well, I hope this is just as awesome for all of you as it is for us. We're really excited to be here. So let's kick it off. So Sam and Tara are superstars. And I think the first thing we should do is hear a little bit about their background, kind of how you got your start in filmmaking, how you work together, and just what you do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'm Sam.
I'm Tara. Hi.
Yeah, we're both filmmakers. We met a long time ago at school.
At Bard College.
Bard College.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a director, writer, producer. I've done a couple of shorts, do commercials. We got nominated for a film together for the Oscars last year, which is very exciting. Yeah. Called Aileen. Yeah, you can go watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I met Sam at Bard. I'm a writer, director, producer. You can come and talk to me later about kind of how all three of those can really intertwine. But ultimately, I think one of the things that ties us together is our love of story and how, to best serve the stories that we are motivated to tell. And I think that's really important.
Yeah. There's so much that goes into filmmaking, and you guys all know that. And just so you know who I am, sorry, I'm Sarah, and I'm the director of Trust. So I do funding and development for filmmakers. So
you should definitely talk to her after this.
Talk to me afterwards.
She can help you fund your short film, which is very hard to do sometimes.
So you guys have had a lot of great success with award-winning films. So I think one thing people would like to know, since you're so focused on story and telling stories well, how do you develop those stories? Where do those inspirations come from, and how do you lean into finding the right stories to tell?
I think it's a good question. I mean, we probably differ in this, but it's similar in some ways. I think so. I directed my brother David, who's not here unfortunately, but I think the two of us kind of think about it less about what stories should we tell, because I think you can pretty much make any story work. It doesn't really matter what it is. If it interests you in some ways, it can be a thing. And so I think for us, it's more about thinking about a process of how do you keep the stories around that you are thinking about. And so I think one of the things that I think separates a professional from an amateur in some ways is having creativity on tap when you want it, and that comes with having ideas on tap when you want them. And I think that comes from, really, when you think of something, whatever it is, a story, a little tiny piece of something, most people just let that kind of flow by them. And it's your job, if you want to be a professional filmmaker, to capture that and write it down somewhere, put it in a notebook, put it in a Google Doc. It's not rocket science, but just that it's so easy to let the things that you think about sort of dissipate. And I think capturing those things and then building up a sort of library for yourself, so when you're looking to make a film or make a commercial or whatever, you can be like, where do I go? I don't want to be creative right now. I'll go to my list of things and figure out what I want to do. And there's 15 or 20 or 30 or 50 or hundreds of ideas that you've written down over the course of years that you can go and look for. Dave and I have those repositories of ideas to go find it when we want it to make something, I think.
Yeah, I think it's about really, to kind of build off of what you're saying, it's about really figuring out what fascinates you, which I know kind of sounds maybe too obvious, but what article do you read that you're like, ooh, that, something about that character is really interesting to me? Or what, what YouTube video? I've gotten film ideas from YouTube videos of just wait, who is this person? Or what is this historical character that they're talking about? And I think it's kind of just being curious and also keeping a record.
Yeah, of what you're curious about.
Yeah, because the thoughts that you have in the shower, the thoughts that you have in the subway, the thoughts that you have when you're riding your bike.
You're watching another show, oh, that scene sucks, but I can make it so much better if we did this. It's great, put that somewhere. Keep a record of that.
That is, I think that's the best. I have a short film that I directed because I was really fascinated by lottery tickets. I think that an idea for a film and a narrative can really spawn off of kind of whatever.
Anything, yeah.
So it's really just kind of, and what makes it so special and specific is to you. You are the special and specific person. It's the way to make a really captivating story is by making it as personal as possible.
Yeah.
That's great. And do you bring collaborators in on that process, or wait till you have a more fleshed out idea? How early do you do that?
I think, it's a good question. I think it differs for maybe the two of us in some ways. I have a co-director, co-writer, co-producer, my brother who I work with, I talk to, 8 hours a day, every day, way too much. But we definitely are early collaborators with each other, obviously, that's how it works. But I think bringing collaborators into the process, early is important. I think if you don't have your brother making moves with you, having somebody else to bounce ideas off, and Tara, is that person for us in a lot of ways. Is, as soon as our first draft of the script is done, Tara's going to read it and start to kind of think about it with us and make it to its, its best form in some ways.
Yeah, and I think it's about finding, because I'll speak specifically to our collaboration, because I think that's what I have with Sam and David is really special, because we've made 3 movies together, and now I kind of really understand how their brain works. And I say brain because it really is kind of a brain. But I also, they also constantly surprise me with the things that fascinate them, right? They're bringing me stories about water polo hazing. They're bringing me stories about, an immigration story gone awry. They're bringing me stories that includes a palette of rat traps, okay. But I think what's so kind of beautiful about our relationship is that they trust me early on. But because I don't take it lightly that they share it with me so early. So I think it's really about finding people who you trust, who get you, but also you have to start developing those relationships early.
I think so, yeah. You have to force it, but if you find people that start to think like you think, keeping them around in your process is important, especially, I know you're going to ask about, maybe it segues well into feedback for scripts and stuff like that. If you're writing stuff, finding out who the good feedbackers are and who the bad feedbackers are, and getting rid of the bad feedbackers and keeping the good feedbackers around is really important. And I think I've definitely gone through the cycle of initially when I would do some writing, I wouldn't let anybody see it, and then it would be bad for various reasons. And then you go too far the other direction. It's you get a million people to read it, and then you have way too many opinions. You don't know where to go. You have no direction, and the thing falls apart. So we've cut that feedback loop way down to a few people we think we really vibe with. And Tara's one of those people, but it really helps you go forward if you don't have too much feedback on your creative process, I think, especially early. Yeah,
because also early, who here has made a movie?
Everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. Because I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got was everybody's going to want to tell you what to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you don't have to listen to them.
Yeah, that's true.
But choose the people whose not only work but taste, but that they understand the way you work and how they want it.
But you also can try people out, and then it doesn't work out, you don't go back to them.
Yeah, and that's
okay. As there's no stress there.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
It's not personal. It's just because that person actually might be a good feedback person
for somebody else. Yeah, but not for you.
Yeah.
Knowing what you need when is really, really important, especially when you're thinking about edits or whatever. Knowing what kind of feedback you need and how to get it, I think is really important.
Yeah, and being really tapped into your process and to really recognize what's working, what's not working. Because I know sometimes when you get notes, it's oh my God, it's almost too much information overload. But really being able to kind of sit with those notes, step out and be actually, is this additive or is this not working for me?
I think that's that balance between instinct and execution.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of times that outside influences have different motivations. What are they trying to address in your process that they think needs help? So for you as writers, directors, understanding how to protect the creative vision and let the right input come in that actually strengthens the story versus ones that are meant to meet other challenges that aren't even a reality yet. So how do you know where to draw the boundaries, and how does that kind of translate into the efficiencies you have to build in making a short film, particularly on short timelines and short budgets, which often short films are, right?
I think with a short, this is my personal belief, you may disagree with this, which is reasonable, but you don't answer to anybody. It's one of the only places, it may be the only place that no one is going to tell you what to do. You have no studio, no anybody over your head. No, for a commercial, you don't have a client. It's the only place where you can make your thing exactly as you want. And so I think it's easy to kind of let yourself be suckered into the trap of oh, I need to get feedback on this. I have to get feedback. It's no, this is your thing. This is one of the few places where no one's going to tell you what to do. So making sure that it's exactly you, the most you it can be, I think is a really important thing, for shorts in particular. I think it's, important. Yeah,
and to add on to that, I think the only thing, with shorts, you actually have the luxury of time. I think that's time, the saying time is money. Time is money, right? The moment you hire anybody else, your DP or what, you start that prep process, the clock is ticking, right?
In some ways, yeah.
But I'm not talking about scouting and stuff. I'm talking about giving yourself enough time to work on the script and get it to a place that you feel really confident with.
I think one of the successes of David and my process is we've taken a long time to write our short scripts. We've taken 10 months or a year I mean, we wrote Aileen like starting in 2017.
Yeah.
You know, like these are not short timelines. I think, you know, it's taken us a long time to write, and we've spent a long time trying to make the scripts good, because if the script isn't good, mostly the film's not going to be good. You can hear all sorts of people say things like, oh, I, you know, did this thing and it was over a weekend and yada, 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 and I got into Rebecca, which is great. But like, truly, if you want to have a repeatable process that you can do over and over and over again, taking the time to write a really fucking good script is the most important thing you can do to start with, I think.
And when you have that really solid document, you really understand what the spine of the movie is, right? And which like leads to your question about like, how do you make it the most efficient? For all it's the service of this story, and we all can make decisions and choices, like does this serve the story or does this not serve the story?
Yeah.
I think it really kind of like sloughs away the things that like, oh, we have to get this lighting package. It's like, or we have to get hair and makeup. It's like, or you know, like here are the things like, does it actually, can we reallocate some of that money? Can we reallocate some of that time? Like, do we need an extra grip? Like
whatever. But going back to your question in terms of efficiency, I think, you know, again, time, like you said, is the only thing you have a luxury on. It's sort of like in the good, cheap, fast triangle, you have a lot of time. It doesn't have to be fast. It's okay for it to be slow. And taking time to prep your film well after you've written a good script, for all of our shorts have taken 8 or 9 months of prep. You know, and which again sounds like crazy, but and makes your timeline long, but it makes for a good movie. And that having one good short is way better than having 3 bad shorts or 5 bad shorts. You know, and so I think. And something I'll say as well, and this is sort of a weird piece of advice, but like if you have the money to make a short, some amount of money to make a short, take that money and chop it into 3 and make 3 shorts. Because 3 shorts will teach you 1,000 times more than 1 short. Just will. Whatever the amount of money you have is, chop that into 3 and make 3. Because it's also like festivals is a numbers game. You're gonna learn more. Just all of it is like about repetition and, you know, getting better. And I think more is better in that way. But 3 good shorts, obviously not 3 fast shorts.
Not 3 fast shorts.
Yeah, but 3 good shorts.
Okay, so how do you, okay, let's say you've got your short ready. You're ready to pull the trigger. You're going to town. Like, how are you approaching casting and crewing your shoots? How are you doing that prep in a way that lets you, like, make this dream you have actually actionable and executable with the budget you have?
So all that stuff, in my opinion, fits into like the budget's an interesting question, because like you can spend, you know, whatever, between five and hundreds and $300,000 on a short, whatever. You know, the budget range is pretty crazy. I personally believe, and I think Tara would agree with this, you don't have to spend that much to make a good short.
No.
And I think it's easy to let the people who come onto the film push you around and tell you, oh, we need this, or the DP needs this. And it's like, no, they don't need that. Like, you really need to be the one to say what is and isn't needed. And so I think looking at the budget really, really carefully and like getting rid of stuff that you don't need. Like things on our shorts we've just gotten rid of hair and makeup completely. There just isn't hair and makeup. Sorry. You know, and it's been totally fine. There's no issue. You know, and so much of like a good short and a short that's going to go to festivals, it really is about, and not always, but like a lot of it's about like looking real. If the audience is like suspending their disbelief that the thing is happening, you're pretty much good to go at that point. You know, unless you're making some crazy fantasy thing or sci-fi thing or whatever, which is great. You shouldn't not do that. But like for like a realistic story or drama, you just don't need hair and makeup, basically. You know, unless you're doing creature effects or some crazy blood thing or whatever.
Totally.
Yeah, you know?
I think kind of like the story spine thing I'm talking about, which I'll probably continue to talk about, sorry. But like it does relate to the budget as well. Because like I love making budgets. It's weirdly a passion of mine, but like it's an incredibly creative endeavor, and like every line item, and that's what like something that we collaborate on. It's like every line item is like, is this serving the story? Is this the cheapest we can get it? Is this, you know, how can we make sure that we're compressing this to is just what we need? Because I think that that's kind of like ultimately my job as the producer is to provide the directors and provide the crew and make everyone, you know, comfortable and happy, but also at service of story. And like when the DP pushes back, when the grips push back, when whatever, it's like, well, it's not because I'm saying no, it's because this is what we're all kind of like at service of, is this story that the directors and the writers have worked on for months and years. And, you know, it's like, yeah, okay, you want a wireless monitor? Really tell me why. That's in service of what we're after here.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
What is the important thing to say yes to?
That's right.
So you have to say no's to get to the right yeses.
But also part of it as a director is finding the stuff that can help you out. Like good locations
Yes.
can make your thing not require much lighting, you know? And so it's like you cut down on G&E, but you
Yes.
spend a long time, like good location scouting is free. You can just drive around and find good locations. And you find good locations, it cuts down on like, you know, the necessity like for lights or whatever. So there's like definitely an element there. And I was a DP for a long time before I was a director. Like I guarantee you just don't need as many lights as you think. You just don't.
Yeah.
Truly. I mean, most of our films have had almost
Very few
no,
lights.
like
Yeah,
one
very
light,
few.
2 lights, like truly almost zero. But we spent 6 or 8 months looking for the right locations.
Yeah. Or figuring out how to cobble locations
Together and make the location or
Yeah.
whatever it is. But like that location is going to be so much more valuable cinematographically than an extra light, than an extra, you know, stand or whatever it is, an extra genie guy.
My
you know?
opinion, the 2 things to spend money on, which I think you might disagree with a little bit, but
Interesting.
is food for your crew.
Got it, if you don't.
Actually, I think
Yes,
you should. That's what you
okay.
Me too.
From the front row.
should. Because I'm from the South, and food is love, y'all. And so, and then also cast. I think that is a place. I've done a lot of SAG productions, and I'm happy to talk about that a little bit. But, you know, in the conversation of also for casting for Aileen, Sam spent months looking for those actors.
8 months, I think.
Like 8 full months of going through thousands of submissions.
Yeah, so we can go to casting for seconds. I think
Yeah.
it's a good thing to talk about. So casting, again, it's one of those things where you have the time to do it. You can like control the process. You can go through 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 submissions and
Right.
find the right people. You can take all the time to get that exactly right, and it's at no cost to you other than your sort of like own
Yeah.
personal like pain in the ass, basically. And so I think it's true. But I think you need to be SAG, personally.
Yes.
And we weren't SAG for 2 of our
Two of our
films,
movies.
but we were looking at SAG actors.
Yes.
So like we've always started the process going SAG, and I think with the micro-budget agreement, which is what everybody should be using, 'cause
Yeah.
it's exactly what you should do. You know, you can basically be SAG for all your casting, and you're just gonna find better actors
Yeah.
who are SAG. Like our 2 stars of Aileen weren't SAG at the time, but like
Yet. Now they are.
they're on one's on Grey's Anatomy and one's whatever. Like
Yeah.
they become. Because they were good, you know,
Yeah.
but it's like if we didn't open ourselves up to the possibility, you want to see as many actors as you possibly can. That's
Yeah.
just really important.
Yeah,
you know?
and like on other films that I've produced, it's like getting a casting director on really early is really important, right? And getting, you know, access to, you know, I've had films with star talent in them, and like we can have that conversation if it actually helps for festivals or not. I'm not totally sure, but like ultimately what it is, it's getting, you know, that actor is going to show up and they are going to hit their mark and they are going to knock it out of the
No,
fucking
let's go
park.
to stars for a second.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting.
yeah.
Like, 'cause I've done no production with stars. Like people tell you, oh, you got to get a star in your short. If you don't get a star in your short, you're not going to Sundance. Like that's just not true. Like it's
Yeah.
just not true.
Yeah.
Most films at all these festivals, and we've been to all of them.
All of them.
95% of shorts at festivals do not have stars. And stars make your life so much more complicated. They have cost associated with it. They have like dates required. You know,
Yes.
you got to shoot this, you know, this schedule, that schedule. If you can get away with not having a star in your production, it's going to make your life 1,000% easier. Even though it's super sexy and like cool to say, oh, such and such is in my film. That's great. But like, I'm not even sure it helps for festivals really either necessarily.
You know, I don't know. The one thing, the huge benefit that I've seen and experienced from having stars in the films I've produced is that, yeah, sometimes, like, weirdly, if the script is good enough, all of that shit of, like, you know, all the complicated stuff of, like, their dates and whatever, like, yeah, dealing with their agents is, like, part of it, but, like, ultimately, they are really good, and they cut your time on set down because you like when we would have done 7 takes, we really do 3, you know, or 4, you know, and
Yeah.
it's but if this is like part of, you're also witnessing, like this is an evolving conversation between
Yeah,
the
we
two
don't
of
have
us.
we don't have an answer.
Yeah, we don't
necessarily.
have answers, but you know, like I've worked with Oscar Isaac before, I've worked with Victoria Pedretti before, you know, it's like all of these folks they show up and they fucking do their job, you know,
Yeah.
which is.
But I think all the
that being
actors in our
said,
films
yes.
did their job as well.
Yes.
Just, you know, I think
It
were
just took
fantastic.
longer to find
It took
them.
my time
Yes.
to go find the good actor. That's what the difference is. You know,
Yeah.
a casting director is going to help you find someone more quickly
Yes.
who's good. Instead, it was just me grinding it out. But like, you can grind it out. I did it.
So like
know?
in our triangle of fast, cheap, and good is like
Yeah,
that's-
exactly. Your
these are the
time,
choices
if you
you're
want to be
making.
cheap
Yeah.
and you're willing to spend the time, you can do it.
It's a trade-off, right? And there have been challenges you guys have faced along the way too with the trade-off question, like how do you make these things happen? I don't know, has everyone here seen Aileen, their Oscar-nominated film last year? It was amazing. So you probably have seen some of what they're talking about in terms of talent. If you haven't, go watch it, it's amazing. But you've had to do some challenging things, shooting in a government building. What? You mentioned rat traps, thousands of them in your next film, shooting underwater. Like, these things that you've had to overcome to make the film what it needed to be on that triangle, decisions that you make good, cheap, fast. Like, how do you make those, what are the challenges that you face, and how did you overcome those in that process?
Yeah, so I can go that for a second. So I think about it in two ways. There's things that Dave and I both are like very kind of like set on. One is like trying really hard to not let the technical aspects of a film limit the imagination of our like story. And like you can figure it out. I mean, yeah, sure, you can make a movie about like World War II and whatever, and it's like pretty hard, but like you can really solve a lot of stuff. Having confidence. People will tell you, oh, make a film in one room or one location, or like make it small. And like it's not bad advice, I guess. But I really think the films that stand out, the ones that are interesting, are gonna have interesting, unique and challenging components, and that's okay. That's part of making a cool short film. And so trying to limit yourself in that way is important. But also, I think the other thing that Dave and I think about a lot, and we've talked to you a bit about, is this idea of like trying to figure out in your film what is the crux of the project. What's the hardest, most complicated production challenge? In Aileen, it was shooting in a government building, which we didn't shoot in a government building. But like, how does that look correct? How do you get that location? What's that like? With our film Trapped, it was having 10,000 rat traps on set. Shooting with Flounder was shooting underwater. Like, once you kind of solve the crux of that problem, everything else kind of just falls in line behind it. And so getting that sort of like getting ahead of steam on that early and figuring out what it is and going there first and trying to solve the hardest problem first just kind of like helps you out, I think, in the production.
For sure. I think that's really real. And then once you have solved, with the rat trap, we talk to experts, we talk to, scientists, we talk to consultants, we think about film not only as, the medium, but like also the science of film. How can we fake a gymnasium full of rat traps? We had real rat traps, but we also didn't have some real rat traps, not to give it away. But
no, it's yeah, but I mean, so the rat traps is a good kind of example. So anyway, the film that is it's not out yet, but you guys can check it out hopefully soon. Anyway, the sort of the central kind of like conceit of the movie is it's like a senior prank, and these like seniors fill a gymnasium full of rat traps, and so you need about 10,000 rat traps to fill a gymnasium, which is a lot of objects, physical objects. 10,000 is an insane number of objects. And so how do you do that? And so we spent, again, like 6 months trying to figure out that problem and buying rat traps, testing them out, getting like a DSLR and seeing like, okay, focus-wise, what can you see? What's beyond the level of focus? What doesn't look like a rat trap? Trying blocks of wood, pieces of paper, printouts, like trying to figure out what we could fake, and then essentially coming up with a sort of creative solve of these little like paper boxes that we got like commercially printed out, and then like a wedding invitation, and then like die cut that we folded into these little kind of like 5-sided pieces of paper that turns out what we found out in the research was the height off the ground is really important because the shadow of this box is what sells it as three-dimensional. Yeah. Which again, it sounds dumb when you say it now, but like we didn't know. We didn't know. We're going to figure that out, and then being build a thing that was cheap and recyclable and easy to kind of get, and that looked really good, was this thing. And so we ended up having basically 10,000 of these paper boxes on set that pretty much beyond the level of focus of the camera, you can't tell that they're not actually rat traps. Right. Yeah. And we talked to VFX experts. We talked to tried a lot of different options, but ultimately the option was practical. Yeah, exactly. But it took us taking the time to get that right was really important for the film's success, I think.
So try things, be resourceful, don't give up. Yeah.
I mean, there's every single short we've done, every single one. Like 2 weeks before shooting, I'm like, this isn't happening. Like this is totally fucked up. Like we're not gonna make the movie. Like truly, it's like the location's gonna fall through. Yes. Like
the actor's gonna fall through.
Disaster is like impending before or in the middle of like every single shoot. That's right. And every single time, it's like just get up and like go to the next thing because it's so easy to be like, oh my God, I'm out. Like let me go home.
Well, and that's why it's important, like surrounding yourself with your crew who you trust.
And people who aren't going to go home.
Right, and people who are not going to go home.
Who are like, I don't care.
Like let's figure it out.
Hour 15, and like, it sucks, but like, let's go like figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've shot the film. We get in the editing room. How many times have we all been there where you get everything pulled together and you're like, oh my God, it's not going to work?
Every time. Every single time.
We did everything we thought we were going to do.
Every
We solved all the problems. We shot everything. This is still not going to work.
The rough
Okay.
cut is the worst feeling on the planet.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
getting your first rough cut back is the worst part of the filmmaking process, 100%, because it's where all the dreams die.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this
True.
is just cooked. Like this project's cooked.
I went to NYU grad film for grad school, and one of my editing professors was like, when you get the first rough cut of your film, you go out, the editor, producer, director, you get blazing drunk.
Yeah.
You just get so drunk you don't remember, and then you go back to the
Yeah.
edit, and you just dive back in.
Yeah,
you
trying
know?
to fix the next thing.
Yeah.
But I think, this is true not just for us, but for filmmakers around
Yeah.
the world. There's a Coen Brothers quote about like the first time you see the rough cut, you want to like commit suicide or whatever. No, that's literally the quote. That's
No,
a
yeah.
Coen Brothers quote. Like they feel it too, and they're like the goats of filmmaking. So it's
Right.
like it's not just a you problem, and that's okay. And I think part of the thing is you write the script, and it's sort of pure imagination in that moment.
Yeah.
And then you film the script, and it's like, okay, and then you edit the script basically in some ways, and it's the first time you see it. It's the first time that like you kind of see the delta between what you wrote in your mind and what you actually have.
shot. Yeah.
And the goal of editing, in my opinion, sort of philosophically, is to try and close that back and claw yourself back to the script, where it's like, I know I wrote a scene
Yeah.
that has this moment in it that's really special, and then what I see is not a moment that's very special. How do we try and get this moment back to being special? To the special moment that I know I wrote and can visualize.
Yeah.
How do we come back there? And every single scene, you're trying to just drag it back to what you knew was special when you wrote it.
And also I know we've talked about time a lot with this, but giving yourself enough time in the edit is something that is, really important. Like if cut 13 isn't working, go on to cut 14, go on to cut 15. I really think that if, working with Sam and David and, working with the other directors that I work with, just like giving yourself not a compressed timeline. Don't just try to make the Sundance
Nope.
deadline, you guys. Just like
No, it's
try.
it's such a trap.
It's such a trap. Everyone's like, I have to get it done by August
No,
13th. And
no.
you're like, well, no, you don't actually.
You don't.
Like,
In fact, you shouldn't. We can
Actually,
go
you
to the
shouldn't.
festival in a second.
And
but
you shouldn't let your life be kind of like ruled by the festival deadline. I think that that's kind of a real trap in this.
we edited all of our shorts for between 10 and 15 months.
15 months, yeah.
Of editing. 15 months of editing for a short. You don't get that in a feature.
No.
You're not gonna get that in a commercial.
No.
But you can have it on a short because again, it's your time, it's your money, or whatever, basically. And so taking that time, and if your editor is we're editing and their editor is like, I'm done, I don't want to work on this project anymore. That's okay. Go find a new editor.
Yeah.
Or edit it yourself.
Or edit it yourself.
Or whatever. And we've had an amazing editor, like friend of both of ours, who's edited projects with both of us.
Yes.
Caitlin Carr, who's amazing. She film just was won Con last
Yeah.
year. Anyway,
Blue Sun Palace. she cut
amazing
Blue Sun
editor.
Palace.
And Caitlin for Trapped did 11 months of editing and was like, guys, I love you. I have to move it to a new project. And so we said, okay, the film's not, we don't think the edit is done, even though you can't keep editing with us. And so
Right.
we spent 4 more months basically editing ourselves to get it to that place where we're like, okay, this is correct.
Yeah.
We're at this spot because no one is going to, only you get to say when it's finished. You're the only person who can say, oh, we're done.
Right.
And that's an important power to hold
Yeah.
yourself to, I think.
And speaking of which, once you get in that process, even once you're staying true to the spine of the story and you're keep continuing to go back to try to close the gap, like you mentioned, there's still all the matter of color, sound, and music,
Right.
which all three of which will make or break a project in the end.
They'll
Right?
make
So, how do you approach those processes? Color, sound, music.
I think we spend more money on color, or sound in particular,
Yes.
more than almost anything else. If you looked at a pie chart of what percentage of money in the film gets spent on what,
Yes.
sound has the biggest bump.
It's like the thing that I've always under budgeted for the movie. It's like the thing that always we need the most money for.
It's so important.
Yeah.
And you could do, again, it's a time thing, but your sound design is really, really important. And color, again, it's you can have, if you get an Alexa and or whatever, and you got no lights and you got a good colorist and a good DP, you can basically make a good thing that looks good.
Yeah.
You just don't need much. Good color, good camera, good DP, pretty much you can have like a one-man situation at that point, or close to.
Totally.
You know,
Yeah.
and again, that's a way to save money, I think. Basically what we've done for all of our films.
Yeah, that's what we've done. And then
You
also
know.
music is really important to Sam.
Super important,
It's
yeah.
so, I think it's not only evocative of the tone of the piece, but it really, it's finding the music, thankfully, because we have been collaborated with Music Bed, has been like, look, if you want the needle drop of an Ariana Grande song in your short film, you're gonna have to go through you need to get a music supervisor, you're gonna need to get a lot of clearances, you're gonna have to get festival rights, you're gonna have to get world rights. There's a lot, it's a lot of time and it's a lot of money. But for us and especially with Aileen and Trapped, and Flounder, sorry.
Yeah.
We've had the pleasure of kind of using Music Bed's platform and being able to find really excellent music that has worked for what Sam and David have wanted, which is actually the key here.
Music Bed's amazing for a couple reasons, I think, and there are obviously ways to do. You obviously could get a composer to do your score, and that's a certain way of working. And honestly, we haven't had that much success with that, to be honest. Truly, we've gone through a couple of composers in various places and haven't really found a person who's oh, this gets the vibe.
Yeah.
And so I think Music Bed's amazing for a couple reasons, and one of it is being able to just temp stuff in. And try stuff. Does this work? No, okay, get rid of it. Does this work? And you can temp things in way faster yourself on your computer than a composer can remake the score for you over and over and over again. There's this kind of a speed of iteration that is really, really, really helpful when you're trying to find the sound of the piece, what it might be. Music Bed's great for that. And then simultaneously, having done this with the Oscars and trying to clear rights and stuff like that for theatrical release, which is complicated and whatever, Music Bed was so simple to do that versus dealing with some record label of which is always a crazy thing to do.
100%. I saw this Instagram post, courtesy of my daughter, not long ago, that took a scene from Titanic and it put some EDM music. It was the "I'll Never Let Go, Jack," where she throws him in the ocean scene, breaks his hands off, But it was EDM music with it ruined the entire scene. It was really funny, but it got me thinking. I'm oh my God, that's so true. And so, even on music, but I don't know if you guys have your own music researcher, or if you use their music researchers. There's this AI feature where you can drop any song you want in, and it'll pull up everything in their catalog that's like that, and highlight parts of the song. So
I've definitely used that before.
You have? Do you find your own stuff ahead of time before you go in? Do you go in with an idea, or do you wait until you've seen the vibe of the edit and then try to find things that fill in?
It depends on. So it's we had some jazz music in the opening of Trapped, and it turned out to be Miles Davis. I didn't know what it was. The editor pulled it and I was what is this? It's Miles Davis. Okay, we can't clear Miles Davis. That's impossible. So you throw that in the Music Bed, and all of a sudden you get a pretty similar vibe that has basically the same thing. I was oh, this is way easier and exactly the same tone.
Yeah.
That works.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you go in, some people like to have a playlist when they're filming, that they know this is the vibe they want for the film musically, and so they go in with their own playlist. And some people wait and don't touch music until they really have the story pulled together. You wait?
We wait.
Okay.
We wait. I don't know, you probably work differently than I do in some ways.
No,
maybe.
I wait.
I usually wait till I have the edits.
Yeah.
It comes in the edit, I think. And I think a big mistake we've made with music is definitely waiting too long. I think you can definitely fuck yourself in some ways by not editing it to music or you're if a montage needs music, get that music in early because it's hard. It starts to inform things differently. And I think David and I, if you've watched our films, the films are pretty pacey, and sometimes you can kind of hurt yourself by not letting the kind of the pacing slow down enough to fit with the music, and you're kind of you're trying to make it cook without music, which Aileen, I think, for most of the film almost has no music, no score really, except for the very end. And I've actually had some people try to put music, score it and it's we cut it too fast to score basically.
Yeah.
In some ways, it didn't need score, and the score ends up kind of making it melodramatic. And so I think if you're going to be working with music, starting early to get that music in so the emotional tone can match the edit, I think is really important.
Yeah.
How do you find the balance between sound design and scoring? Because there's such a dance there.
Totally.
I don't know. I mean, for me, sound design is almost score in some ways.
Yeah.
I think they're
specifically in Aileen. I really think that.
I mean, Flounder too has a lot. The sound design is sort of score-like. But I think of sound design as a key emotional driver in the piece. And I think, I'm not sure everybody should, but I think it's that way.
Mm-hmm.
And in trying to find a sound designer who can design as if they're like a composer in some ways is really important.
Yeah.
I don't
Well, because like I also think like I'll speak to Aileen specifically just because it's what's coming to mind about
sure.
how like dynamic this sound design is like there are different, there's like the belly of the beast moment where they're like in the bottom of the building where they're running from ice, and it's like that sound design is so much different from when you're up in like the sunlight. It's like it propels the narrative in a real, and supports the feeling of the
tension.
The tension.
But I think one of our notes to our sound designer on Flounder, which is this kind of like hazing film, and it's like mostly three-quarters naked, like men running around, basically, was like trying to figure out a way to like make the rhythms of like the bodies in the film. It's a very like bodies focused movie, like and how to make that be the score in certain ways, and I think it works.
There was also this big conversation about what does underwater sound like.
Yes. Yes.
And how can that help tension? How can that, and also
we tried music actually in that moment. It didn't work. We ended up going back to just sort of like the sounds of the water being the kind of score.
And when you do introduce music, like having a lot of different songs you can try in that place, because some things are going to complement those sounds and some things are going to overwhelm them and ruin what you're accomplishing.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Just real quick note for you guys. I know Music Bed kind of sponsored this for us, which is awesome. We're so grateful for that. They are giving all of you a free handout on your way out for 2 months free of Music Bed if you'd like. So be looking for that. That's awesome. Definitely try it out. Definitely try it out. Super helpful, super easy to do, and they'll get you cleared for everything. So before we get to questions and answers, let's answer the question about festivals.
Sure.
Yep.
Such a crapshoot and such a beating of a process. I think a lot of us have been there. But what is your approach to that process? How do you know when to pull the trigger? How do you know where to submit? And how do you know like how to balance the length of time you go with festivals versus releasing widely online? Like, what is your process for that?
Yeah, I think there's a real strategy. There is a strategy. I think and one of those strategies is just blasting out there. But I think kind of understanding when the movie is finished is the most important festival strategy you can have.
Yeah.
Is like being like, hey, we good?
Or at least the edit's finished.
The edit's finished. Like you don't necessarily have to have.
You don't need color to send to festivals.
Color
you just
or sound.
Or sound.
Yeah.
If the sound sounds okay in the edit, you're okay.
Yeah.
If you're missing important pieces of sound design, then you have to like.
You have to get that fixed. But mostly when you get to submitting, just like making sure that picture is locked and not going to change.
Yeah.
And then kind of looking, where are we in the calendar? What month? I haven't seen you guys. Hi. Where are we in the calendar? Like, is it January? Is it March? Is it November? And then, I'm kind of I think you just make the swing for the Sundance, the South by, I'll add a couple different ones in there that I really love, which is like Rotterdam, the Venice, the Berlin, the
underground,
Locarno,
the underground festival of Berlin.
Festivals. But I think like just kind of like, it's also part of your strategy is really kind of you understanding what kind of movie this is and what kind of movie you've made. A Sundance movie is very different than a Berlin movie. A Cannes movie is a very different movie than a South by movie. They're not bad, they're just different. And kind of understanding what the audience is, I think is like the biggest, that's what my role as a producer is like really kind of like understanding who is going to watch this film and who's going to really resonate with this film. And that can really, if you don't have a lot of money, which I think all of these places, if this was 10 years ago, I would have said like, ask for a waiver code. But right now, because of COVID, the festivals are struggling, and like the festival fees that you send are very helpful and are keeping these festivals afloat. So what you should do is, apply early if you don't have a lot of money. There's an early deadline, there's a regular deadline, there's a final deadline. Figure out who do you think your movie is for, make a list of those festivals, and watch the movies and the shorts that went to those festivals. That is the biggest recommendation that I can send. It's like, what is a Sundance movie? Go watch the Sundance movies that were last year. What is a Cannes movie? Go watch the Cannes movies. But then also think about, I'm the biggest proponent of this. I really think that regional film festivals rock, and they are the best way to get eyeballs on your film.
Regionals?
Yes,
Yeah.
man. I love going to Wichita, Kansas, and like someplace in Iowa, and I don't know. It's like it's really once you get the bigger festivals out of the way, it's a really exciting way to have people. I make movies so people will watch them.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my diatribe. Sorry, Sam. You can go ahead.
No, it's fine. I totally disagree on that, actually. My festival strategy, we argue
No,
about this
I know.
quite
We
a
argue
lot.
about this all the time.
I think for festivals, I've done the same every single year with all of our films. Every single time, it's the same way. We do the top 50 festivals. That's it. We submit all top 50, and we don't submit anything else.
From whose list?
There's a list online you can Google. If you Google right
Top
now,
50.
top 250. No, there's one guy, this guy Adrian somebody. If you Google it, Google like top film festivals. It's the first thing that comes up in Google. It's the top 250 film festivals. Take his top 50, submit to those, and leave it at that. That's what we've done every single time. And mostly you've been rejected. Get ready for rejections. A lot of rejections. You're going to get rejected by the majority of festivals. That's how it goes. That's just a baseline. We start at Cannes in March as the first submission and go
Work your
around
way
the
around.
calendar. So start at Cannes and whatever, then you go to Venice. You submit to Venice, TIFF, maybe New York
South
Film
by.
Festival potentially, though they don't take many shorts, but whatever. As the fall
South
comes
by
around, it's
Sundance.
Berlin, Rotterdam, Sundance, South by Slam Dance. Into the winter, you're going to Cleveland, Tribeca, yada, 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 around the calendar. That's what we do. And that pretty much clears you for like premieres. Like there's a whole thing about like your film
premiere
premieres here,
statuses.
it'll premiere there, and like there's always the exception, like my film premiered at Cannes, but they played it at Sundance too, like whatever. The general rule that I understand about premieres, and this is maybe wrong, but I don't know, is if you premiered at a European film festival like Berlin or Cannes or maybe Rotterdam, you potentially can still play your film in the US at Sundance, like South by, TIFF, whatever. If you played it South by or Sundance or TIFF, you're not going to Cannes. You're just not going to Cannes. You know, those like there's a weird thing there, but you can like some films from Sundance every year go to South by.
Yes.
Some films from South by go to Tribeca. Those places don't go back to Sundance basically. So there's a little bit of like a pecking order thing that happens, which is why you should prioritize them in that order so you can make sure you hit them in the proper thing. Just looking at my career and my life, I will say that the majority of kind of like stuff I've gotten from film festivals, like my manager or whatever, has come from the larger festivals. I
would disagree from my personal
opinion. A lot of the smaller festivals I've been to, they're lovely, and if they're near you, you can go to them without paying a lot of money. Great, but I haven't found much career benefit from the smaller festivals personally.
So
that's my opinion.
As a producer, I think this is where it's different. Where I have two directors that I have found at Tallgrass Film Festival. In Wichita, Kansas, which I am now developing features with.
There are some of these smaller ones that are also feeding, and they share programmers, they share audiences. So Tallgrass has got a great reputation.
Like Denver is amazing. They're all like Annapolis is amazing. They kind of like share. That's another thing that we can talk about this later. But it's like the whole programmer racket, or not racket.
If you know a programmer at a festival, 100% send it to your programmer.
You should be like, hello, here's the tracking number.
Gently, nice to meet you, whatever. Like, don't go find them in the blue, probably.
No.
But if you know them personally or met them at another festival or whatever, definitely if you're trying to apply to their festival, send to them. It's really important.
But it's like it's also so like I am a huge proponent for the regional festivals. I also am supported by Sundance, so it's like there is I feel like there's a real kind of breadth that you can kind of cover in terms of also showing up and figuring out what you want out of it. You know, if you want to meet people, go meet people, and that's the way that I have. Like, I'm currently working with this filmmaker named Kate who literally walked up to me on the street in Kansas and was like, hey, like I'm only here by myself, my feature's premiering, but like I want to, do you want to hang out? And now I'm producing her feature. So it's like, that was like 5 years ago. So I think it's a little bit different, but in terms of career, I totally understand and get
only my opinion, you know what I mean? Like, again, just looking at my personal experience from it. I'm not a producer looking for other projects to produce. I'm a director looking to people to like, and I found it, for bang for your buck, you will spend a lot of fucking money on festivals.
Yes.
And so it's like trying to limit that down to like an approachable, I know if I send to the top 50, if I get in, I'm pleased. Like that was money well spent. Versus if I submit to something random that costs money, I'm like, why did I do this? So that's my personal opinion on it.
let's say you got through. So Aileen, you got through the Oscars, and then it's time to go online. Like, do you self-release online? Do you like to have a partner where you are putting it on a premiere on a platform like a Vimeo?
Yeah, definitely premiere it if you can. Vimeo Stat Picks, in my opinion, is still the top place to premiere a short online. I think that personally, I think the Vimeo people are like amazing, and they do a really good job curating. You know, I always try for like a couple. There's like a couple of them out there, but I think Vimeo Stat Picks is great. Actually, Film Supply Films does some cool premieres. I think Short of the Week still has some viewership. Leto's one that has some viewership. I think like Director's Notes, Director's Library, Film Shortage.
Yep. Beyond the Short's another one. Nowness.
Nowness one's like, if
It's
you have a
kinda
cool
weird.
film, then maybe Nowness is
Yeah,
for you.
we always start with Vimeo Staff Picks.
Vimeo Stat Picks is the
That's
spot that I
like-
start with. Yeah, and
that's
we
the
usually
anchor.
go from there.
Yeah.
As the
Because that's a
place to
different audience than online, but sometimes it's just as powerful in terms of connections and getting your work seen
Yeah.
by collaborators.
Yeah,
So
totally.
I think so. Yeah.
I think we are coming up on some Q&A time. So I hope you guys have some
Sorry, I hope-
questions.
Bit of a
Yeah.
We can talk for a long
Yeah,
time.
we talked for a long time.
Hi. I was just wondering if you, like, straight out of college, did you ever have, like, I guess, fear that you're, like, aren't enough or, like, you don't have that much experience or something that you struggle with? Like, kind of like you're stumped and you don't know what to do. Like, how do you get over that?
Every single day, I wake up in
it
the
doesn't
morning.
kind of go away.
Every time I open my eyes in the morning, I'm stricken with fear that I'm not enough and that I have no idea what I'm doing. Every single day, and
Yeah.
since I was like in school.
It's more about, I think, kind of coming up with
Your quote to me was, "Move every project in your
Yes.
life 1 inch each
Every day.
Every
Yeah.
day. That's a good quote. That's a Tara
if
Sheffer
you can just
original.
if you can just move it 1 inch every
1
day,
inch.
sometimes you'll lose 6 inches in a day. But
Yeah.
you just keep going.
Yeah.
Like if you can send one email, if you can send 2 things, like just keep pushing. I think when I started out, I didn't really know that this was. I didn't think I could do this. You know what I mean? Like I worked in reality TV. I worked for a Hollywood producer. Like I was trying to understand and figure out how to fit into the industry. But there was a real moment for me, which is not. This is something that's also different between me and Sam. Is ended up going to grad school, and I think that was, for me as a woman in film, gave me a lot of confidence. And without that confidence, I'd been beaten down by a lot of the industry before, and with that with the recognition of kind of doing grad school, it really gave me the ability to kind of push forward. Is grad school for everyone? No. But like, I think you can make your own grad school, by making like what Sam said, take your money, cut it into 3, make 3 shorts, and I think that that's kind of giving yourself focused. I call it my sabbatical. I like went on sabbatical, where it's like giving yourself focused time to be like, I'm gonna develop myself every day as whatever I want to do, whether it's writing, directing, producing, whatever. I think is like the best way to kind of mitigate that not feeling like you're good enough.
I also heard one Oscar winner I talked to one time tell me, screw imposter syndrome. Just do better every day. Learn something new from every project and do better every day.
Yeah, but I mean, imposter syndrome is so real. Like
real.
everybody,
It
I have it every single moment, and it's like I think 2 things have helped me think about it. One is thinking of your work not as individual pieces, but as a continuum.
whole.
Yeah.
And I think David helped me see this, my brother helped me see this quite clearly, where it's like, this next short we're making isn't gonna be the one. Like maybe by short 4, we'll have gotten somewhere.
Right.
But like the next short is just the next short.
Right.
It's just the next thing.
It's just the
You
next
know,
thing.
it's just the next thing, and there will be a short after that. And committing to more than one project, like we said to each other, we're gonna do 6 shorts. And if we don't figure it out by short 6, okay, we can have a conversation about maybe we suck. But like, let's do 6 first and see how we do.
Yeah.
And it only took us 3,
Yeah.
But like, committing to like a continuum and not just like, this has got to be my magnum opus. This is the one thing that's going to make or break me. That helps, I think, back off the pressure.
Take the pressure off.
Yeah, for me, that helps a lot personally. And I think also, it's important to just like think about the work. It is a daily practice.
It
Like,
is.
People who play football or do anything, like practice every day. Patrick Mahomes is in the weight room every single day lifting weights. And if you want to be a writer, whatever, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, whatever, like they're lifting weights every day. They're watching film every single day. If you want to be a professional filmmaker, go fucking work on it every day.
Vimeo staff
you know?
picks, you know, if you want to be making shorts, go to Vimeo staff picks and watch all the shorts.
Watch all
on
the shorts.
Vimeos.
Watch all the
Yeah.
shorts from South by this year. From Sundance, you can find them all online.
All
Like, go
online.
watch the shorts and go study the form and learn. It's the only way you can get better. It's the only way you're gonna get better.
Yeah.
I think.
For sure.
Hi, I'm a student filmmaker, so I apologize, it's another student filmmaker
That's
question.
okay.
But
That's wonderful.
how did you get into the access to those rooms that gives you legitimacy and makes people want to take the risk on you to give you those budgets to make these short films?
So the shorts that I've done personally, I have paid for myself from working as a DP. Truly with my own money, which is why I've tried to make them as literally as dirt cheap as possible, because it's watching the money like drain,
just like,
my
this is
savings
my
drain
money.
away. You're like, fuck me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're investing yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and it's an investment, and it's just, and there's a scare. Investment has risk, and
Yes.
investment has return. And you know, you're trying to invest that money that you've saved up by working as smartly as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, the film, that's why when your DP says, I want one more lens, and you're like, no, that's my money. Like, we're good. That's not a good investment of my
Right.
money, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess that's the answer.
So once again,
Thank you guys.